welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. We're going to be talking about the previous homestand, some injuries, some new call-ups, the scoring for the team on the power play and 5-on-5, the upcoming road trip, and the move to Clarke to lefty puzzling here. So we got a lot to talk about, so get in the chat, like and subscribe. You know what to do. Let's go. All right, guys. Well, it's just going to be Joe and I tonight. We're, giving Russ a night off. Let him sit this one out in the press box before the road trip. So you guys are stuck with just the dynamic duo here. Joe, how are you doing?
Okay. This feels like I'm coming down with like the 47th head cold that I've had this fall/winter season. It's crazy. People always say when you have kids, like it's just they're walking germs and it's just nonstop. So that's fun. But other than that, appreciate that, Al Smith. It is a nice hat. I actually got this hat at the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Oh, really?
In Toronto.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact. Absolutely. How you doing, Randa?
I'm doing pretty good. Went golfing today, so I'm sore everywhere. A little bit sunburnt because I forgot the sunscreen.
Nice.
So, fresh winter skin on – it's 85. It was 85 to 86 degrees today here in Texas. So it was a nice, beautiful day for golf. And so I, shot, what was it? I shot 106, I think, today, but I got my first birdie. So it was a nice little round. Dusting off the clubs. It's been 3 years. So it was good. Noah, where's the Dodgers hat? I don't know. It's spring training. So I'm just kind of throwing, I have, a lot of people don't know, I go on baseball tours. I have about 28 of the 30 hats or 27 of the 30. So it's spring training. I'm just going to kind of roll out a different hat every night. The only hat I will not be wearing are the Giants because screw them. And
I almost wore the Yankee hat.
Maybe the Rangers or something like that. So spring training, I just grabbed a hat out of there. So my trip to Atlanta was nice. It was on a layover, by the way. So we were flying to New York, ironically, to go do the New York, Boston leg. And we get to the layover, and it was about an hour. And so I went up to the next terminal. I said, hey, do you guys got any people in standby? And they said, yeah, sure. And so I said, well, what happens if we give up our seats since there's 4 of us? I was like, do you pay for our hotel? Do you give us money? Like, what's the – and he's like, well, I mean, it's too early in the flight to just give you guys money for it, but we will give you the first class out and we would put you in a hotel for the night. So I made the decision to say yes for the family, and we went and bought tickets on StubHub on the phone and got to the game. So that was when the Braves – and they were playing the Marlins, so they were both crappy teams. And so they were like $10 tickets, and we were 2 rows behind the Braves dugout. And they ended up winning that game like 15-2. So my arm had arthritis from all the Brave chopping all night. But it was a hell of a night. So
awesome. No, that's one way to have a nice, decent layover.
I know. So, well, let's get into it. Hopefully, there's no layover on the way to Edmonton. I heard there's a big snow flurry up there. So fly safe, boys. But before we get to the upcoming road trip, let's talk about the homestand. Kings pulled out 2 out of the 3 games. We were hoping for 6 points out of the easy schedule. Fell to Nashville in the mid game, but walks away with 2 points. Now tied with Edmonton. Edmonton has a game at hand, so Monday night's game is going to be huge. But let's talk about the team as a whole. What did you see from this homestand? What do you like going forward with how the team is playing?
I thought the Kings kind of got back to playing some really good hockey. I thought they really controlled the game against Columbus. I thought they really maybe dominated is a bit of a stretch, but I thought they were in control of that game pretty much from puck drop. I really liked the way LA came. And I know the first wasn't great. I think they may have been, I don't know if they were down after the first. Now I'm foggy at this point, but I thought it was okay. Like I thought they came out of it okay. I thought they played a really good game. Same thing with Nashville. Like, they played all right. I thought they played a good game against Nashville, and then they've got, they score the 2 empty netters, the Preds do, so it looks a little worse than it is. They just couldn't finish, and that's been kind of the thing here. and lately is they just haven't found many goals at 5-on-5. But I thought overall, and then obviously they have the game against Anaheim where they dominate the possession. They had 50 shots or whatever it was, which is great. But I know Jim Hiller talked about it after the game, how there was a lot of defensemen that got, I think they had 20 shots amongst the defensemen. So, there's a lot of shots coming from the back end, which, isn't always ideal, but the finishing at 5-on-5 has been an issue, but it was a big 2 points to come out of it against Anaheim to end the road trip with a win, 2-1. Again, I don't think the loss in Nashville was I don't think they played that bad, to be honest with you. It sucks to lose, and the score makes it probably look a little worse than it is, but it was a 2-1 game with, 3-4 minutes left. So they just couldn't finish. And again, like I said, that's been an issue.
Well, let's get into a couple of those. You hit on a couple micro topics that we're going to be talking about tonight. So let's start with aggressive Hiller. He's been aggressive in his line changes. He's been aggressive in changing mid-game, but pretty aggressive on the goalie pull, pulling down one with, what was it, 3:28 or 3:30 left in the game.
Yep.
You tweeted out that you liked that kind of aggressiveness. Yep. I do as well. I think, hey, what's the difference between 3.5 minutes or 1.5 minutes? I mean, you get time to get set up, and hopefully you get one through. And the whole point of pulling the goalie is to establish possession down there and score a goal. And why does it have to be with 1:30 left versus 3 minutes left, right? So, I mean, the empty netter was scored pretty much from all the way across the ice. Yep. Time is not a factor in that. So explain to me why you like the call, and is there any difference? I mean, you're not making that call at the high school level because you're an assistant coach, but what goes into that from a coaching standpoint in your mind?
There was a few things, and I would Hiller may have alluded to this in his comments after the game. It's situational in a way in that I don't necessarily if the Kings were breaking out of their own zone with 3.5 minutes left. I'm not saying I'm itching to pull the goaltender in that particular spot. However, there was an in-zone face-off. I want to say there was at least one icing, and so the matchup was right. You had in-zone face-off, so you could potentially control what happened, and that's a situation, obviously, where the face-off is very important if you're going to pull your goalie. So given the circumstance, I loved it because you had a chance to put your top guys out there against, it was either the third or fourth line that was out there for Nashville. That's the opportunity that you do that. Looking from a numbers standpoint, Evolving Hockey had Nashville with 3.5 minutes left at 91% to win the game. So when you kind of look at it that way, it's people get a little bent out of shape because it's 3 minutes. It's holy cow. The only reason they get like that is because forever it's been 1 minute. And why is it 1 minute? I don't know. It's just because that's what people did decades ago. But really, what's the difference if you lose 2-1, 3-1, 4-1? It makes no difference. And I thought Hiller did 100% the right thing by pulling the goalie in that spot, especially with the in-zone face-off. Maybe if there wasn't an in-zone face-off and it was in the flow of play, it's more of a 2.5 minute pull. I wouldn't have had a problem with it necessarily at the 3.5 or whatever it was, but I think he alluded after the game is maybe a little earlier than he would have, but I sense that he's open to being aggressive with that, and that's exactly what you want. Think about there's always conversations on Twitter about teams going forward in the NFL on fourth down. Very similar. I want my coach going for it. I want my coach going for 2. I want my coach going for fourth downs. I want my coach pulling the goalie early if the situation presents itself, because the numbers suggest that it just makes sense, and I think it's way too conservative. Just wait. I don't understand the reasoning for waiting for 1 minute left. It doesn't have to be that way. Like you mentioned, at my level, there's often times where there'll be 2.5 minutes left. It's a 1-goal game. There's an in-zone face-off. We look at each other, the head coach and I, yep, let's do it. Or he says, what do you think? I say, yep. Said it's maybe early, quote unquote, by conventional standards, but it's what's the difference? Try to go score a goal.
I mean, yeah, you score the goal with 30 seconds in, and there's 2.5 minutes left, and it's 5-on-5 hockey, and you're playing to win still, or you're playing for overtime, or whatever. The goal is to score a goal and match it up to odds. So I understand. I would feel weird about if it was in the flow of play and you're okay, that's kind of weird. We didn't really establish any possession, but in the context of what, like you said, against inferior people on the ice for the other team. We get to dictate our matchups, all that kind of stuff like that. I mean, I liked the ballsy nature at that time.
Not for nothing. 0 5-on-5 goals that game the Kings had, right? I think the goal they scored was a power play goal. So you're sitting there saying, well, why are you pulling them so early? Well, they haven't scored. And and I thought they controlled the game. They controlled the pace of play, but I thought Nashville did a really good job of keeping the Kings kind of out of the high danger area. I don't think the Kings generated a ton of great chances, particularly in the third period, while they had a lot of the scoring shot attempts, but I don't think that they had a ton of high danger chances in that period. So that's Hiller saying, we can't really get anything going. We're going to try to get something going here. We like the matchup. There's only 3 minutes left. Let's pull him and let's see what happens. And I thought, and he's always going to look like the idiot when it goes in the net, but I'm very much team Hiller here. I thought that was a great move.
Let's get to the other part of this aggressiveness here has been the line changes. Threw in Jad the other night, even though we all think Turcotte's been playing well. Yep. We'll get to the left side for Brant Clarke because that came from more of injury rather than Hiller himself. But the aggressiveness in the game, not being afraid to mix it up if he feels something's going wrong or something's going right. We talked about it last podcast about rewarding minutes to the line that's humming during the game. Now that we've gotten a bigger sample size, how are you adjusting to the aggressiveness of his line changes mid game?
I think the biggest thing I like is he recognizes if a guy's going, he's going to go. And I think Quentin Byfield played over 20 minutes last night, I want to say. And I think Russ had tweeted it was the first time in his career. If I misquoted Russ, my apologies. But that's the idea of he's recognizing Byfield as the guy. He's driving a lot of the play here. Let's get his ass on the ice as much as possible. So, I think the ability to tweak things, there's been a lot of special teams, it seems, recently. So that requires a lot of tweaking, in between special teams, whether it's power play and penalty kill. I'm a Jod guy, that Anderson Dolan. To beat the dead horse, I wouldn't take him out. I wouldn't put him in for Turcotte. I'd put him in for Lewis, but never going to happen. So I move on. One more thing with the aggressive Hiller, if we noticed at the end of that Nashville game, now part of this is because of Mikey Anderson's injury. But I think it also speaks to the fact of how little, I don't know about confidence is probably the wrong word, but we saw Adrian Kempe play defense, play lefty in the offensive zone on an offensive zone faceoff a couple of different times at 5-on-5. Love it. Again, why not? You're losing in the game. It's late in the game. You're trying to get something going. You don't have any offensive defensemen because the team doesn't. They just not how they built their decor. So, and I don't think Clarke had his best game against Nashville. It definitely seemed like he was reluctant to play Clarke there late in the game, even trailing. So I loved it. I love getting Kempe out there on the back end. Why the hell not? So I really do like some of the aggressiveness that we're starting to see from Hiller.
Yeah, I mean, you run a set play or just have another offensive mind down there. The whole point at the end of the game is to score, right? So, so let's get into the next part here, which came from the injury. So let's get to the injuries here. Some tough ones. Holden 92 coming in here. I feel really bad for RV. Worked all season to get back and then got injured 3 games later. Non-contact too. 17 seconds into the game. Tough to see him. He goes back on LTIR. They bring Lizotte off LTIR. Grunstrom is still on there. So Kings are playing a little cat magic right now. Unfortunately, it's because of RV not being able to stay on the ice, but hopefully they can do something well with it. He can get back soon for a playoff run there. But 2 guys going out. They call up Mavara for the road trip, and he's been playing hot. Game-winning goal the other night for the Reign. He had 2 goals the night before that. I mean, he hasn't had a scoring touch for the Kings, but he's lighting the lamp apparently down there in Ontario. Playing some really good hockey. Hopefully we see him on the road trip. Again, not to beat a dead horse for Englund there, and see if we can get some. He's been playing some decent offensive hockey, Mavara. So see if we can do something like that, or even just getting more balance if they don't want to go right two righties and they circumvent and keep floating Clarke and Spence. But Mavara has played really well. in when Gavrikov was out, and I think he'll continue to do so if he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, just real quick on Arvidsson, that sucks. I mean, and whether this is coincidence or whatnot, we've talked about this on this show in the past numerous times. How many times have we seen over the past couple of years an LA Kings player comes back from a lengthy injury only to wind up right back on IR just within a week later? It's very unfortunate. I don't know what the injury is, of course, but it sucks because he's such an important piece to that top 6/middle 6 of the lineup that and the power play, right? He's a good player on the power play. So it's a really tough one. And I hope he's able to come back at some point. The Mikey Anderson injury also is a significant one on the back end. The Kings, are thin on the left side as it is. So to lose Anderson, who is not having a very good season, let's just call a spade a spade. This is not Mikey Anderson's best season, but he is the Kings, top pair D-man that they play with Drew Doughty. So, that's a big loss, especially when you're thin on the left side. To the Moverari thing. So I'll be interested to see what happens. Reading, I don't know, obviously, Jim Hiller, and we haven't seen a huge sample size of him in terms of his press conferences and the things he says and all this stuff. But boy, I didn't exactly get the warm and fuzzies that Moverari was even going to come close to seeing his equipment on this road trip when he says that Moverari would join us. And he goes, this is a quote. He goes, join us, I guess, because we can't go on the road with 6. Which is true. But the way he said it and the way he said, I guess, it's like he'll be there as a body just in case. But listen, I don't know what else Moverari has to do. His metrics for his NHL career, albeit small sample because he has yet to really get an extended look, have been good. They've always been good. He has stepped in, as you mentioned, in top 4 minutes before, filling in for Gavrikov as recent as this season and played well. He plays well in Ontario. I genuinely don't know what the kid's got to do to get a fair look. He's quite clearly a better option than
apparently
Andreas
he's got to
Englund,
punch somebody.
I guess. I mean, it is incredible to me, but we'll see. Hopefully he gets in. I mean, we know the Kings are they don't like this playing all these right shot D apparently. So that may be his saving grace to getting into the lineup is the fact that they may not want to see Clarke on the left side again or whatever, and get the more balanced left, right. So that could be a reason that he gets in. He should play. I mean, he's a very good defenseman. And he's, like I said before, he's probably the Kings' third best left shot defenseman in the organization.
I mean, the way Mikey Anderson's playing this year, he might be the second.
And he's at least the second healthiest right now. That's for sure. Yeah. We can say that. So we'll see what happens.
Dave O coming in here, got to keep England in versus the Oilers, or Kane and Perry will cheap shot LA all night. So he wants some physicality against Edmonton.
You know what?
Edmonton does do that. So
I'm sure England being out there will make sure Evander Kane and Corey Perry won't cheap shot anybody. What logic is that? They're going to cheap shot somebody whether England's out there or not. We realize that, right? That's the way those guys play. You think they're scared of Andreas Englund? You think Andreas Englund's going to be on the ice against Evander Kane? We better hope not. Evander Kane's
will be against Perry.
He might be against Perry. Perry occasionally has been in the top 6, which is a little hilarious. But if England's out there against Kane, if England's out there against Kane, that's a win for the Oilers. Okay.
You're talking about just in hockey terms.
In hockey, yes.
Not in fighting, yes.
Yeah, so maybe after the whistle, England looks at him very, very sternly as Kane skates back to the bench.
I know you're being coy here, but
no.
that's how you truly believe. Yeah.
It is. No, it genuinely is. Like, listen, I am all for the guys that can play tough, that are hard to play against. I want my guys to be hard to play against. It's one of the things that I harped on all season this year with the high school team. Be hard to play against. But you have to be able to play. And if we think that Andreas Englund is a good matchup against anybody in Edmonton, we are fooling ourselves.
Do you think it's different for a forward versus a defenseman because there's more of them, so you can afford to have a guy that's a forward be more of a bruiser, i.e., like they brought the guy that they brought up, Rumpf in New York, right? He's the new hotness over there. 3 games, 3 fights, whatever. He's 6'7", everything like that. Do you think it's easier for a team to have a bruiser as a forward because you have that fourth line grinding, checking line, stigma there, and all that kind of stuff like that? Do you think that that's kind of easier because then he's not as exposed?
I think it's easier to hide him because I think it's easier. First of all, that fourth line is probably playing what?
10 minutes?
If that. And some of these, and I don't even think it's that much. I mean, some of these, remember Zach McEwen, what was he playing? 3 minutes last year when the Kings brought him in? So how much damage is he going to do in 3 minutes? Whereas Englund's going to play double-digit minutes, and chances are he's going to spend, let's see, if he plays 11 minutes, he's probably spending 8 of them in his own zone. That's a problem. So, that's where, I mean, it becomes a much bigger issue, especially if you're on the road. Edmonton is going to be looking to exploit those matchups as much as they can, and it's not going to be hard for them to do that. So, I agree with you that if there was a forward, you can do that. I think that makes it's a little bit of an easier thing than a D-man.
And I'm all, that's one of the reasons I like Grunstrom. I like Grunstrom because he hits. He's not a fighter. He doesn't like drop the gloves a lot, but he's tough to play against. He's pesky, and he'll throw the body. He has the second most hits on the team. So and he had the most last year. But like my favorite prospect for the Kings this last year or whatever that I wanted them to draft, right? Lund, really good with the puck and not afraid to scrap it up. You have the Kachucks, right? They do that. The Marchands. Those guys are Kane. Those guys are tough to play against. Yeah, they'll drop the gloves every once in a while, but it's more about being a pain on the ice rather than after the whistle.
And I get it. Like when Corey Perry was available, I was like, if the Kings didn't have Trevor Lewis, and I have no idea if there was any mutual interest whatsoever. I'm just, when I saw that he was available, like that's the type of guy I'm okay with it. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, but I get it. And if you're going to fill your fourth line with somebody like that, I'd rather it be, this may sound crazy, I'd rather be Corey Perry than Trevor Lewis. Okay. So that's kind of how I would look at that. But regardless, I want my guys to be hard to play against. I want my guys to be in and engaged in battles. Brant Clarke, you saw him against, I think it was Edmonton, because he's playing the left side. Like he was boxing guys out at the top of the crease. Like he's not this like soft, doesn't want to touch anybody defenseman. You want guys to actually be engaged. And so that, to me, that hard to play against doesn't mean I'm going to fight you or I'm going to hit you every time. It's just mean you're in that player's face. You're stopping on his checks. You're hard on back checks. You're in on forechecks. Like that, you don't have to be this bruising, slow fighter to be hard to play against. Quite the opposite, in my opinion.
Is there any concern to you that with the Turcotte sit last game, or do you think it's just getting Jad some ice time?
I haven't seen anything. If I missed it, it's certainly possible. It's been a very busy weekend, but I take it as just an opportunity to get Jad into the lineup. That's what I'm hopeful. Obviously, I kind of like what Turcotte's brought, so hopefully that's what that is. But yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah. All right, you brought it up a little bit here earlier. This Clarke on the left D. So because Anderson went out, they tried Clarke on the left D there. I was busy the other night versus the Ducks, so you're gonna have to hold down on this segment there, Joey boy. But what did you think of Clarke on the left side? I saw that there were some negatives. I saw that there were some positives, but what did you think of his overall game?
It was, I was going to say everything I would have wanted it to be, but it's for game one of him doing so. Like I saw like so much in the first period. I loved every second of it because you've got a guy who was willing to, I thought he could have been more aggressive at times at the blue line when Anaheim was looking into the King zone, but he was positionally fine. But the way he was jumping up into the play, the amount of times where a Kings winger, so him being on the left side, the right D in this case was Roy, was a little bit more willing to go back, get pucks. Of course, that's the right D, generally speaking, in the Kings system. They can come out, and what it does is when they're breaking out of that right side, it allows Clarke to just jump up a little more. So there were times where the pass from the winger, so Roy would go to the winger's pass was going to Brant Clarke in the neutral zone. And I'm like, that's what the Kings have been missing. They haven't had anything of the sort breaking out of the zone. And I loved that aspect of the game. So I think, you're putting him on the left side. You have to be willing to accept a little bit of a give and take, a little bit of riskier play. Otherwise, why is he here? Why'd you draft him? You've got to accept a little bit of, first of all, it's his first game on the left side extensively. So there's just naturally going to be some mistakes. But to be honest, at least especially the first period, I thought he looked more comfortable on the left than he had all season on the right. He seemed free. The way he was skating, the way he was playing, and there were times in the offensive zone where it almost shifted to like it was an umbrella. So because he was on that left side, he would kind of cheat down into the dot area a little bit, and then Matt Roy would swing up to the top. If Clarke would get it, he went to Roy, and Roy would take the shot. It's probably why Roy had 10 freaking shots on goal yesterday. That's probably not a mistake, like an accident. So there was a lot that I really, really liked about Clarke's game on the left side. And I know it's not going to be perfect, especially this early, but I also hope they stick with it because I do think he can be a really, really good asset there on the left side. Just looking at some of his numbers, excuse me, from the game, he's 52% in shot attempts, and he was 55, just under 56% in expected goals was Brant Clarke for the game. So his on ice number, that was 1638 at 5-on-5. So his on ice numbers were good. I won't say great just because the Kings as a whole were 58 in attempts and 60% in expected goals. So like the whole team did quite well. So I'm not going to praise Clarke over the top with praise, but first game NHL extended time as a left defenseman, and you have positive numbers across the board. And to me, he did a lot of things that you would like to see him do. So I liked it. I hope we see more of it. I fully acknowledge that you go in against, an Edmonton team on the road. They're going to have to make a decision. Do they want Clarke at the lefty, or do they? We'll see how much they hate Moverari if we see Clarke on lefty tomorrow. Because as much as I want to see that, it would surprise me a little because that's going to be a tough task. Going to Alberta for back-to-backs and having this kid play lefty again. I think he can handle it. I want to see it, but I'll be interested to see if they go with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough for him. Now that you're saying that and how fast the movers are over there on the other side, it might be better to have Rivara and then put him back on the right. As much as I don't want to sit Spence, but I think it would be tough. Maybe try that on Calgary, even though Calgary's no slouch. In their own barn on a back-to-back. So, but sometimes you got to peel off the Band-Aid because if this has to work long term, the Kings don't ever tell what's going on. Right. So, I mean, we don't know if Anderson's out for 1 game, 2 games, 2 months. So it might be the more games he gets over there, the better for him, or they can trust the guy that's just good in Rivera and figure that out there. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. Again, I thought it was a really good, and I thought Roy's just a perfect partner for him. I really like that. I mean, not for nothing. I mean, those numbers that I mentioned from from natural stat trick, he had better possession numbers than Englund, but that was very close. But regardless, I mean, I think we know my thoughts on Englund and where I think Clarke can be a better option there. But, I thought it was a good first start. Growing pains are going to happen. But if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to accept some of that, I think.
It comes with just those types of players. I think he's just the type of player like Fiala where you got to accept the good with the bad because you're going to see the drop plays where, I mean, Fiala, right? I think he's got 3 power play goals on the homestand. A lot of toe drags now where we used to saw last year. So it's gonna be something that you're gonna take the good with the bad there, and there might be some really bad plays against Clarke.
But can I say I don't ever I don't know that have seen Clarke be irresponsible. Like if as an organization, if you're so worried about this, why are you drafting him?
Yeah.
What is the point? I don't think he's been an irresponsible defenseman, whether it's the left or right, in his time in the NHL. It seems like if I'd like to see him even be more willing to jump into plays, which is what I started to see last night against Anaheim as a lefty starting to jump up more. That's what I'm looking for out of him. I don't know if the coaching staff agrees with that, but like, why the hell did you draft him and why is he here? Don't be surprised that it's like, oh, Clarke's here. He's jumping up into the play. Why is he doing that? Well, because that's his game. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like that, send him back to Ontario and tell him to be a stay-at-home defenseman, and then go to your staff and say, why the hell did we draft this kid? Right. So like there can't be this surprised look on everybody's face of when he jumps into play or looks to do something. Like, that is the player he is. Understand that
we here like the player that he is.
Yes, you need him to be responsible. You need him to be smart in those decisions. And again, like I said, he's going to make mistakes, but I haven't seen him be like this irresponsible type of defenseman where he's always getting caught out of position. He's making stupid plays constantly, left and right, yada yada. Like it's going to be a process as he grows into his game, but you've got to give him a little bit of a leash to do that. And I'm not saying Hiller hasn't. Like, again, I don't know what Hiller's opinion was on Clarke after the game. At least in the media availability that I saw, there wasn't any specific question about Clarke, so I don't know how he thought about it, Clarke on the left. If he did say something and I missed it, let me know if somebody in the chat has seen it. But so I don't know what his thoughts were on it. So we'll find out, against Edmonton, really, if he wants to stick with it.
I mean, I liked what Marco Sturm said about Clarke. I mean, hey, we spent all of our time, and even Clarke said that we spent all my time working on my defensive side of the game. And we don't touch him on the opposite side of the puck. We let him do what he wants to do. And that's the kind of thing that he needs. When you have that kind of, I mean, I don't want to compare him to Patrick Mahomes, the greatest player in the NFL right now, but he throws a lot of interceptions playing schoolyard ball, but he also wins a lot of football games playing schoolyard ball. And so you got to take the good with the bad, and he might cough it up trying to make a play, but so does Fiala and so do other people. But then you're also going to see a sauce from 40 feet across, or where he passes it off the back wall directly to PLD and buries it. So you're going to see both of those plays. And I would hate for them, as Holden says right here, they said they were trying to take the rover out of Clarke. I don't like hearing that. Yeah. I mean, that's not his game. And, you want to draft all these playmakers. You want to draft the McCarrs and the Foxes and the Heskinens and stuff like that. But you got to take the high-end offensive play, or the Quinn Hughes, right? Quinn Hughes had one season, his rookie season, with high-end offensive play. The next season was really bad defensively, and now he's fourth in points overall, not even just defenseman this year. You're going to see a lot of maybe volatility in the points and maybe the plus minus, but overall, those types of players can elevate your team when they're on.
And I think it's just about picking your spots. Again, I mentioned on the breakouts, there were times when the forward for the Kings was hitting Clarke in the neutral zone on a breakout pass, and Clarke was kind of in turn leading the rush into the zone. I got no problem with that. No problem with that. Because he's coming in usually through the center of the ice. I don't have an issue with that because the Kings are in possession of the puck. If he's routinely getting caught behind the offensive goal line and there's an odd man rush coming back or stuff like that, or making really, really bonehead decisions with the puck on a consistent basis, and I'm just not seeing either of those. And I think it's going to be unfortunate and I'm not saying the coaching staff is doing this, if people do what they did to Dursey, where every little mistake he made, they're just all over the kid. It's just and now look how well Durzi is playing. He's having a hell of a season in Arizona. He's a good defenseman. And people just, the negatives are way easier to see. You don't often see the little play that gets totally unnoticed, that gets a team totally out of trouble and maybe out of the zone clean that you wouldn't have ever picked up on. But you see the one bad pass that gets picked off. It's just like, that is totally the wrong way to look at it, in my opinion.
I think also is with those players that are highly offensive skilled and trying to dance around and do those things. It's like, okay, you're trying to make the extra play and then you cough up the puck by accident, and it goes the other direction. Like, oh, why did you just make the right play? But then we also get mad at offensive players for, why do you just dump it in? Why are you just dumping in the puck? Because like you could have skated that across. You could have made an extra play, but then when they try to make the extra play and they cough it up,
the Quentin Byfield, one of the goals of the season so far. He said himself, last year he probably just dumps the puck in, right? Why would he try to take on a guy, try to split two defensemen, make a play, go over this? Because that could have easily been a turnover, and it's coming back the other way, and everybody on Twitter is losing their mind. McClellan benches him, and this and this and this. Let your freaking players make plays. Period. Like, if he's got the confidence to do it, that should be encouraged. Let him go make a damn play. Why do you want your guys just dumping the puck in? Absolutely not. So that is what I'm talking about. I'm so glad you said that, Randon. It's like the safe play doesn't get criticized, although it should sometimes. Like that play with Byfield. If he just dumps that in, nobody says anything. He goes to the bench, and that's that. Whereas if he were to try to beat the guy, it gets stuffed, it goes back the other way, and it's an odd man rush. Everybody wants to kill him. Meanwhile, everybody right now is talking about how he scored the goal of the season because such an offensive play. That doesn't happen unless you are willing to let your creative players create, right? That is where I'm coming from with my whole philosophy, basically, of how to play hockey is let your players create, let your creative players that are confident in doing so, let them do it. That's Byfield, that's Clarke, that's Fiala. Does that mean there's going to be a mistake sometimes? Yes. Does that mean there's going to be a turnover sometimes? Yes. But if you are doing your job and you're trusting, you're putting those players and they're developing in the way that you expected them to, the good is going to far outweigh the bad. And that's what it's all about.
And the fact that you got to trust your team. If you cough it up, you got to trust your team. You got to trust your goalie to make a save. You got to trust your defense to get back. And that's part of playing team hockey. Like you got to trust your teammates to pick you up when you're down. Just like Clarke, picked his team up after he making a bad penalty, game-winning goal, right? So let's. I think it's just something that needs to continually get looked on here as a positive and rather than a negative. Yeah, sure. Yes. We don't want the turnovers, but driving play is going to far outweigh the bad, as you said. So let's get into our ad here with DraftKings Sportsbook. You guys want to make some money here going into March in tax season and everything like that. We know hockey games move fast, but DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Hey, Kings have some big games going up. Do you want to parlay the game against Edmonton and against Calgary? You can do that on DraftKings. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now with code THPN. New customers can get $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook. Code THPN. The crown is yours. So let's get into here the road trip coming up. Going across the Canadian border, some big games coming up, playoff implications. Kings are tied right now in points there, Mr. Paterino.
Yeah.
Big game here going into Edmonton, breaking through the snow to get down into Alberta, playing the Flames right after that. What have you seen from the Kings so far? Obviously, Edmonton not as hot as they were, hitting 14 straight or 15 straight, but they're still a good team. They still got a good roster. Yep. Kings are playing a lot better. What do you think are the keys to the game here going into Monday night?
Well, they've got tricky on the road. They've got a really obvious statement here. Find a way to limit. I'm not even going to say keep McDavid and Draisaitl off the board. That's just so hard to do. But you got to find a way to limit it. The scary thing about this is, they have the matchup. The Kings are out one of their top defensive defensemen in Mikey Anderson, and they don't have the last change. So this is certainly an opportunity for McDavid and Draisaitl to potentially feast on. We'll see. We'll see what the matchup says. And I say feast. I mean, it just depends. Like I know they're not going to always be out there against England or anything like that, but it's going to be a tough task for the LAD. This is why you went and got Pierre-Luc Dubois. This is why you got that strength down the middle to be able to help and be an asset and be a tough line to play against, no matter what of the four lines is on the ice. This is the type of game that you got, or a team like Edmonton that you're getting him for. Now, the tough part really is Edmonton at home, big game against a D core that's missing one of their top guys. This could be a game where Edmonton puts a few pucks into that, and the Kings have not scored lately at 5-on-5. So that becomes difficult if they cannot score with Edmonton, which lately they just have not shown that they've been able to do. Conversely, Edmonton's having a hard time keeping the puck out, so maybe something has to give here. But it's going to be a really tall task for the Kings Monday night in Edmonton.
Jacob A coming in there. The whole Pacific is cooling down. You look at our opponents here. The Canucks are 4-5-1 in their last 10. Calgary, though, 7-3, winning 3 straight. And Edmonton, 4-5-1 as well. So Kings are 7-2-1 in their last 10. So one of the hottest teams here out of the 4. So it's going to be interesting to see which gives, like you said. I think the keys of the game are goalies are going to need to make saves. Back-to-back, you're flying, getting going. Tough game in overtime against Anaheim. I think the goalies are going to need to come up big. Who would you start game 1? Ritter's kind of cooled off a little bit. Talbot had a decent game the other night. You going Ritter then Talbot, or you flipping them?
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion here. I'd go Rittich though. I'll go Dave Rittich, and then Talbot on Tuesday. I'm good with that, but I'm not exactly gonna lose sleep if they have for Talbot either. So I don't have a strong opinion on the goalie.
I think my second key to the game is going to be what we just talked about. Our players got to make plays. So the strong players got to come in. Not Brant Clarke, but Quentin Byfield, dominant so far this whole season. We're going to see what he can do now. Second half of the season, Fiala's coming on the last couple. Power play, which we will get into, one of the tops in the league after January 1st. So got to take advantage. If there's any of those crusty plays that we often see from the Oilers, this check to the back of the knees where they give you free penalties, that's where you got to make them pay, is on the scoreboard. And the special teams, PK is looking good still. So, size special teams is going to be huge to win this matchup going into tomorrow night. Hold at 92. Trevor Moore needs to start scoring again. Hasn't scored in forever. Your boy, you need to give him some juice there. Jay Paterina, your quest for 30 is slowing down here in the second half.
I think he's on pace now. He was on pace at one point. Yeah, he was on pace at once for 40 goals. I think right now it might be right at 30. I think it's been 11 games since he scored. This has got to change. He, as a couple people in the chat have mentioned, the 5-on-5 scoring has completely dried up. That whole line. Well, I mean, Fiala scored on the power play, but Deneau hasn't done anything offensively. Trevor Moore hasn't scored. Carter scores. Deneau 1 goal in 15 games. Same with Trevor Moore. That is not good enough from your second line, really. I don't think they've played poorly, but there's just no finish right now, and it's not just those two, but no finish. They're getting nothing from the back end other than Drew Doughty.
Thanks for teeing it up, JW. There we get into scoring question mark. So the Kings have had a parity, like I mentioned, since January 1st. Kings, I believe, are 6th overall in power play percentage. So was it January 1st or February 1st?
January 1st.
January 1st. 6th in power play percentage, but they are dead last in shooting percentage, right? On 5-on-5 is what you said?
For the season, they're dead last in 5-on-5. Yeah. And I think the last 20 games they are, if they're not dead last, they're in the bottom 2 or 3. They're shooting at 5-on-5 It was under 5%. I forget the exact decimal at this point, but it was less than 5%. I think the next closest team was over 6. That's how bad the finishing has been at 5-on-5. And this is the season as a whole. This includes the start of the season when you had, Trevor Lewis was chipping in a couple goals. Trevor Moore was scoring every other game. So this includes that stretch. It has been brutal right now at 5-on-5. I don't think, though, if I look at like their expected goals for per 60, like I don't think there's been a drastic change there. So, and to me, it's like this eventually has to turn around.
Mhm.
Like you can't go this route. I mean, they're 5th in the league in the NHL in expected goals for per 60. Yet they are that is for the last month. Excuse me. That's for the last month. They're 5th in the NHL, yet they have the worst shooting percentage. They're shooting 5% the last month, tied with
Ugh.
the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's not like it's not got any better. But yet, like I said, expected goals for per 60 at 5-on-5. They're in the top 5. So they're doing a lot of things well. They're not finishing. I just wonder, though, their rush chances, I think, have gone down. They are not. It's been more north, south, east, west. And we talked early in the season. I think you said early in the season where you had heard or read something about how the Kings scoring off the rush was a lot more. They were doing a lot more east, west and getting the
Yeah, the
goalie moving.
PDO cast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know that that's happening quite as much. But, I also think part of it is when you're shooting that low of a shooting percentage, listen, some of this is just puck luck. And it's going to I say it has to. I guess it doesn't have to, but, it's probably should be expected that it's going to turn around at some point.
So yeah, I mean, just to refresh everybody, the PDO cast said that the Kings offense is so good is because the way they attack. They're not only attacking north south but east and west at the same time. So
And
weave
that was
it in
early
and
in the
out.
season.
Earlier in the season, yeah, weave it in and out on the rush. So they're getting a lot more rush chances. They're counterpunching at people. So they're making people pay off the rush after playing not only the 1-3-1, but taking the aggressive pass, pushing the pace up ice, and then weaving in and out, trying to take it from the outside to in. The forward will cut back behind them, and you're creating mismatches with the eyes for the goalie and then defenders, because generally a lot of people on the rush play man. And so they pick up somebody up there, or the goalie says, hey, I got that guy, or what have you. And then when you're crisscrossing as you're on the rush, it opens up chances for drop passes and everything like that to get shots off. So the Kings have been, I think, just snake bitten. I think a lot of people are pressing to where, I got to get this shot off. And then we've also seen those where Kempe just takes it up the wing and he's one-on-one with the goalie and just buries it. And we haven't seen that in a while either. So
yeah,
a lot of things haven't been going right with the shots. Incredibly snake bitten. I think the one game that we saw a couple lasers was from PL Dubois, with the pass from Clarke off the wall. And he just hammers that thing top shelf. So we'll see. We'll see if they can get this thing going. I mean, it doesn't even have to be 8, 9, 10%. Like, let's just get to 7. This is 2% higher, and we'll start seeing a lot of these go in over the time period. Now, it's been not a problem on the power play. So
yeah.
Where's the discrepancy here? Is it just the style of play? Is it the shot itself, or are you throwing up a dark light bulb here and you don't really have an idea of what the cause is?
No, I mean, we've seen Drew Doughty score. So, every now and then, I think he just did it against Anaheim. He takes the clapper from the point. Fiala has scored power play goals. I think he's got 3 games in a row with a power play goal. When you have a shooter like that, you're getting into an opportunity to shoot the puck from a good area. He's done it from both the left and the right circle. Those are a little bit more likely for me because usually where the passes are coming from is probably either from down low, or from the cross seam. So it's a little bit more of I believe that a little bit more, if that makes sense. Like that's more frequent to happen rather than, I mean, if Doughty gets it and just hammers it from the point, like, I guess, although the goal he had yesterday, when the camera worked the really slow-mo, like the way he drew the puck in, it wasn't a typical Doughty just bomb from the point that finds its way through. It was a really, really good shot where he pulled it in toward his body, around the defender, around the penalty kill, the top killer. So, I don't know that there's been. I mean, obviously the Dubois one you mentioned was on a power play off the play from Clarke, off the end wall. So I don't know, if it's anything that's too drastic that's necessarily changed. But the power play is, for all the heat that it had taken during the start of the season, and it's fair, deservedly so. It's been really good. Like I said, since January 1st, you said it's sixth in the NHL in percentage at 29%. So there's a lot that's going well with the power play, and I want to see. It looks like for the season they've jumped all the way to ninth. So
Yeah.
power play ain't that bad. It's granted it's been hot, especially lately, but it's funny that early.
Who got called up around that time?
Oh shoot,
Brant
forget
Clarke,
his
baby.
name. There it is. It's funny how early in the season they couldn't score on the power play. It was all 5-on-5, and now it's just the inverse. They're scoring only on the power play and nothing at 5-on-5. It's been a couple games since they scored a 5-on-5 goal, so that's obviously a problem.
I would take an amalgamation of both of those.
It'd be nice. That would be nice.
12th in the league. We don't need to be 9th. We don't need to be first overall since January. 12th in the league there, and then some more 5-on-5. It would be it would be nice there. But I got to give stick taps to a player here since Hiller came in. Pierre Dubois playing outstanding, drawing the most penalties in the league. So he's showing a more aggressiveness, scoring some goals, assists, carrying his line night in and night out. I don't care what little small game they're playing every single night with his checklist from Hiller. It's working, and sometimes you need to have a bucket list, man. I mean, I went 2 months without getting dryer sheets because it wasn't written on my whiteboard. Write it on the whiteboard. Got it within 1 week after that. So if you put in front of you what you need to do on a day-to-day basis, sometimes that can help. And he's really been playing some good hockey.
And can I say that's kind of the coach is trying to get the best out of every player. And every player is a little bit different in how you get the best out of him.
Yeah.
And, it's easy to say, well, he's making $8.5 million. Isn't that enough? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair statement, I guess, but you don't have it every day that you go to the office. I know I don't have it every day that I go to the office. And some days it's a little bit different. Some days it's a little bit tougher to get motivated. And whatever Hiller is doing, that's his job, is to try to figure out a way that makes this player tick. And if he's doing it, that's all that matters. The player is evidently responding to it, whatever it is. So that's the important thing, is the coach recognizing the player is struggling, and how do we unlock this? What do we have to do to get this going? And, early results have been positive. So he's playing that much more. He's playing much better. So I think it's great. I mean, it shouldn't, like you said, it shouldn't matter. The coach is trying to get whatever he can do to get a player going, and whatever it is, it's working.
Well, we got some key games coming up here. We're playing Edmonton, tied with us in points. Calgary's right behind us, 7 points behind.
Yeah.
There, and Vancouver is clearly in front. I don't know about you, Joe. I would take 4 on this road trip. I mean, you got a back-to-back. You got 3 and 4 days. You're flying over 2,000 miles into Canada. A lot of travel. I think a good road trip would probably be 4 or 5 out of 6. A great road trip would be all 6. We'd love to see that. Nice little sweep in Canada. But I mean, 4 would be a good road trip for me.
4 would be good. 5 would be, anything above 4 is great for me. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's what you don't want to get swept. You don't want to go over the week. Very obvious statement, but that would really. But it's tough, right? You got the back-to-back. Edmonton, Calgary is tough, and Vancouver for. I know nobody believes in them this year, but they keep doing it, and that's a good hockey team. So that's going to be a very tough one too. So I would agree with you that 4 would be good. I would say 4 was actually is really good to get 2 wins on this trip. So if you look at 3 points, I think I would. If you told me right now that the Kings would get 3 points on this trip, I would take it.
Well, I'm a little greedy, so I'd like to get some four or more. Davo, I'd happy with 3. Just keep pace there. Kings have got one of the easier schedules down the stretch, right?
Yes.
And not that we don't want to win against playoff teams, because we're gonna have to do that later on. But if we come out here 500 and then we play some easier teams, get some points down the stretch, and solidify. One more question for you, Joe. We got 3 options here. Playing Dallas, Edmonton, or Vegas. Who do you want in the first round?
If I have to pick between those 3, I'm picking Vegas.
Yeah.
Fairly comfortably too, because of the style that they play is fine with Los Angeles. That's not to say it'd be easy, not to say that Kings would be favored or anything like that. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, the deadline's still coming, so changes, whatever, for multiple teams. But I really don't like the matchup with Dallas or Edmonton.
Oh, do you mean the yearly Vegas LTIR limbo that they're about to happen? Whoever posted that meme that I retweeted with Kurt Angle like breaking Vince McMahon's ankle, and it's like this happens every season for Vegas. That had me cracking up. But
that was very funny. Although the Kings probably don't have anything to say this year, where they've got 2 guys that are on. A couple guys on LTIR themselves.
I mean, we haven't done it 3 seasons in a row. We're about due to do some cap limbo here, which they have 3.5 mil. Russ tweeted out plenty of space if they want to go get a goalie, if they want to go get another forward, a defenseman. Rob Blake, this is your time to shine, big guy. Like, let's go out here and let's make a move and let's push towards May. But appreciate you guys coming in the chat. Thank you guys for strong. Please hit that like button on the way out. We always appreciate it. We still have our Trevor Moore shirts. We're working on some new shirts going in here for March, but we still have sizes available, small through extra large. $30 right now. Orders to contact at hockeyroyalty.com, and then we can Venmo if you need anything but Venmo. Russell will be able to accommodate you. Just DM him with those. So get your shirts there for the rest. Say, hey, they're Trevor Moore shirts. We need more shirts being bought so that way he can score more goals. We got that's how it works. There's some good mojo. Follow us there at @hockey_royalty, NHL Russell, JW Paterino, Rando Commander 24, and all your rain coverage at Kopitar for HOF. Big road trip here, guys. So let's get some points. Let's narrow it down. Let's push towards the playoffs. And as always on this podcast, go Kings, go.